The alien queen called the human weak, then trusted him with her throne. The great hall of the Karzal Dominion was built to make visitors feel small. Its ceiling rose so high that the lights looked like distant stars. Massive pillars shaped from dark crystal lined the walls, each carved with symbols of conquest and obedience. The air itself felt heavy, thick with power and history. Every sound echoed longer than it should have. At the center of the hall sat the throne. It was not a chair, but a living structure grown from alloy and biocrystal, shaped to fit only one being. Upon it sat the alien queen of the Karzal. Tall, sharp-featured, her silver eyes watched everything with cold intelligence. Her presence silenced even the strongest warriors in the room. This was humanity's first official appearance before the Dominion. They had come not as equals, but as guests tolerated out of curiosity. A small group of humans stood on the polished floor below the throne, surrounded by alien nobles, generals, and advisors. Compared to the towering figures around them, the humans looked fragile. No armored shells, no claws, no glowing eyes. Just flesh, cloth, and quiet discipline. Evan Cole stood among them, hands clasped behind his back, posture straight. He felt the weight of 1,000 alien gazes pressing down on him. Some looked amused, others looked disgusted, a few looked hungry. The queen leaned forward slightly, resting one clawed hand on the arm of her throne. "So these are the humans," she said, her voice smooth and sharp at the same time. It carried easily across the hall without effort. "The species that survives by hiding behind machines and alliances." A low ripple of sound moved through the court. Not laughter, but something close to it. The queen's eyes fixed on the humans. "You are small," she continued. "Your bones would shatter under trials our children endure. Your flesh tears easily. You lack natural weapons. Tell me, why should the Dominion consider you anything other than weak?" Silence fell. The human delegation leader stiffened, clearly struggling to find safe words. A wrong sentence here could doom Earth's future. Before he could speak, Evan stepped forward. The movement sent a wave of surprise through the hall. Human protocol did not allow this. Alien protocol certainly did not expect it. The queen's eyes narrowed. "You," she said, "speak." Evan felt his heart pound, but his voice stayed steady. "You are right," he said simply. "Compared to your people, humans are physically weak." Gasps echoed from both humans and aliens. The queen tilted her head slightly, intrigued. "We break," Evan continued. "We bleed. We die easily. We have always known this." The queen leaned back, studying him now instead of dismissing him. "Then why are you here?" she asked. "Why stand before an empire that could crush you without effort?" Evan met her gaze. "Because weakness taught us something strength never had to learn," he said. "How to survive." Murmurs filled the hall. The words were simple, but the confidence behind them was not. Before the queen could respond, the lights flickered. For a fraction of a second, the hall went dark. Evan's instincts screamed. He moved without thinking. A sharp crack echoed as energy fire sliced through the air where the queen's head had been moments before. The blast shattered part of the throne's upper structure, sending crystal shards flying. Evan lunged. He slammed into the base of the throne, pushing himself between the queen and the direction of the attack. A second blast struck his shoulder, tearing through fabric and flesh. Pain exploded through his body, but he stayed upright. Chaos erupted. Alien guards roared orders, weapons powered up. Nobles scattered, some ran, some froze. The queen stared down at the human now kneeling before her, blood soaking into the dark floor. "Why?" she demanded, her voice sharp with shock. Evan gritted his teeth, forcing himself to stay conscious. "Because," he said through pain, "we don't wait to be told when someone needs protection." More shots rang out from hidden positions along the walls. But the attackers hesitated now. The hall was no longer calm. Their moment was gone. Dominion guards surged forward, overwhelming the assassins within seconds. The attackers were slain before they could be questioned. Silence slowly returned, broken only by alarms and Evan's uneven breathing. The queen rose from her throne. She descended the steps slowly, her gaze never leaving the wounded human. She stood over him, towering and unreadable. "You should be dead," she said quietly. "You gain nothing by doing this." Evan looked up at her, blood on his lips, eyes still focused. "I gain nothing," he agreed. "You kept your life, that's enough." For the first time in centuries, the Karzal queen felt something unfamiliar tighten in her chest, not fear. Uncertainty, she turned sharply to her guards. "Take him," she ordered. "Secure medical care immediately." The guards hesitated. Not as a prisoner, she added, her voice leaving no room for argument. As my responsibility. The hall erupted with whispers. A human had shielded the queen. A human had survived. A human had spoken without fear. As Evan was carried away, his vision faded, but one thought stayed clear. Weak or not, humanity had been seen. And the queen watched him leave, already knowing this moment would change everything. Evan woke slowly, dragged back to consciousness by a steady humming sound. For a moment he thought he was still in the great hall, with crystal pillars and hostile eyes. Then he realized he was lying flat, surrounded by soft blue light. The air smelled clean, almost sharp. His shoulder burned, but the pain was distant, controlled. He tried to move and failed. Bands of light held him gently in place, not tight enough to hurt, but strong enough to stop him from sitting up. Above him, translucent shapes shifted as medical systems worked silently. "So you are awake." The voice was calm, measured, and unmistakable. Evan turned his head slightly. The alien queen stood a few steps away, her tall form framed by the curved walls of the medical chamber. She was not wearing ceremonial armor now. Her presence was still heavy but less distant. "You should not be alive," she said. "That weapon has ended beings far stronger than you." Evan swallowed. His throat was dry. "Guess I disappointed someone," he replied. The queen watched him closely, as if searching for deception. There was none, only exhaustion and quiet humor. "Your kind confuses me," she said. "You accepted being called weak, yet you acted without hesitation. Why?" Evan stared at the ceiling for a moment before answering. "Because words don't matter when someone's about to die," he said. "Action does." The queen stepped closer. "You knew nothing of our politics," she said. "You had no duty to me, no bond, no reward promised." "I didn't need one," Evan replied. "Where I come from, protecting others is how we survive." The queen's eyes narrowed slightly. "Survival through self-sacrifice?" she asked. "That is inefficient." "Maybe," Evan said, "but it works." Silence stretched between them. Outside the chamber, the Dominion was in turmoil. The assassination attempt had shaken the court deeply. Trust, already fragile, was cracking. Noble houses accused one another. Generals demanded purges. Advisors whispered about weakness at the top. Inside the medical wing, the queen remained. "You understand," she said slowly, "that many now see you as a threat." Evan looked at her. "I didn't come here to threaten anyone." "That does not matter," she replied. "You embarrassed them." A human stood where they froze. Evan sighed quietly. "Yeah," he said, "that tends to make people uncomfortable." The queen studied him again, longer this time. "What do humans fear?" she asked suddenly. Evan blinked. "A lot of things," he said. "Loss, being forgotten, failing the people who depend on us. And death. We fear it," he admitted, "but we don't let it decide everything." The queen turned away, walking slowly across the chamber. "Karzal rule is built on fear," she said. "Fear of punishment, fear of loss of rank, fear of death. It has kept us strong for generations." She paused. "And yet today, fear failed." Evan said nothing. He sensed this was not a question. "There are those within my court who would see me removed," the queen continued. "They believe mercy is weakness. That hesitation invites rebellion." "Do they want your throne?" Evan asked. "Or your power?" The queen stopped walking. "There is no difference," she said. Evan shook his head slightly. "That's where humans think differently," he said. "Power without trust doesn't last. You can rule with fear, but you can't lead with it." The queen turned sharply. "You challenge my rule?" "No," Evan said calmly. "I'm explaining why someone tried to kill you in your own hall." That landed harder than any insult. The queen's claws tightened slightly, then relaxed. "Continue," she said. "Someone believed the system would protect them," Evan said. "That fear would keep everyone silent. They were wrong. Fear makes people desperate. Desperate people take risks." The queen stared at him, her expression unreadable. "You speak as if you have lived this." Evan's eyes darkened. "Humans have broken their own worlds more than once," he said. "We learned the hard way." Another silence followed, heavier than before. Finally, the queen made a decision. "You will not return to your delegation," she said. Evan frowned. "Am I under arrest?" "No," she replied. "You are under observation." "That sounds worse." "Perhaps," she said, "but you will remain alive." She activated a control, and the restraints around Evan's body faded. He winced as sensation returned, but the pain was manageable. "You will recover here," the queen said, "and when you can stand, you will answer my questions." Evan met her gaze. "And if I refuse?" The queen's lips curved slightly, not in a smile. "Then I will remind you that this is not your empire." Evan nodded. Fair enough. Days passed. Evan healed quickly by human standards, slowly by Karzal ones. During that time, the queen visited often. Sometimes she asked questions. Sometimes she simply watched him. He told her about Earth, about cities built in hostile environments, about wars humans barely survived, about cooperation between rivals when extinction loomed. He never exaggerated. The queen listened. Reports continued to arrive from the court. Factions forming, fleets repositioning, loyal generals arguing with ambitious nobles. One evening, the queen arrived with tension clear in her posture. "They are testing me," she said. Subtle challenges, delayed orders. Public disagreement. Evan sat upright, now strong enough to move freely. "That's how it starts," he said. "They're measuring your response." "They expect violence," she said. "They always have. And if you give it," Evan replied, "they'll use it against you." The queen's eyes flicked to him. "What would you do?" Evan considered the question carefully. "I'd watch," he said, "and listen, let them show who they really are." The queen was silent for a long time. Finally, she said something that shocked even herself. "Stand with me." Evan looked up. "Not publicly," she added. "Yet advise me quietly." He hesitated. "I'm human," he said. "Your court already hates that." "That," the queen replied, "is why they will never see you coming." Evan exhaled slowly. "All right," he said, "but I don't play power games." The queen met his eyes. "Neither do I," she said. "Not anymore." And in that quiet medical chamber, far from the throne, the future of an empire began to change, not through force, but through trust between two beings who were never meant to stand together. The Dominion did not collapse all at once. It cracked slowly, like a frozen surface spreading lines before it breaks. From the shadows of the palace, Evan watched reports scroll across a wide projection wall. Fleet movements, supply delays, messages filled with polite words and hidden defiance. To the Karzal court, it all looked normal. To Evan, it looked like preparation. "They are circling you," he said quietly. The alien queen stood beside him, her arms folded behind her back. Her posture was calm, but the tension beneath it was clear. "They believe I do not see it," she replied. "They hope you don't," Evan said. "Hope is dangerous." She glanced at him. "You speak of hope as if it were a weapon." "It can be," Evan said. "So can disappointment." The queen studied the projections again. 3 outer fleets have delayed routine drills. 2 governors have requested emergency authority, and the High War Council has begun meeting without my summons. "That's your answer," Evan said. "They're testing limits, seeing what they can take without consequences." The queen turned toward him. "And what should I take from them?" "Nothing," Evan said. She stiffened. "Explain." "If you strike now," he said, "they become martyrs, victims, heroes in their own stories. Let them move first. Let everyone see who breaks the rules." The queen was silent. This went against everything she had been taught. Karzal rulers crushed threats before they grew. Mercy was weakness. Patience was risk. Yet the memory of energy fire slicing past her head returned uninvited. Fear had failed her once already. "Very well," she said. "We wait." They did not wait long. The first open defiance came from a border sector governor who declared his system independent for the sake of stability. He claimed loyalty to the Dominion but refused direct orders. Several fleets quietly aligned with him. The court erupted. Generals demanded immediate retaliation. Nobles accused the queen of losing control. Advisors spoke of tradition and strength. The queen listened. She did not strike. Instead, she asked questions. "Why now?" she asked publicly. "Why this system? Why this governor?" The answers were weak, circular, defensive. Evan stood hidden behind a privacy field, observing reactions instead of words, who avoided eye contact, who leaned forward eagerly, who waited to see which way the power shifted. "They are revealing themselves," he told her later. "And they do not know it," she replied. The second fracture was worse. A supply convoy vanished, not destroyed, redirected. Its destination was a noble house that publicly supported the rebellious governor while claiming neutrality. The queen summoned the house leader. He arrived confident, surrounded by guards, his tone respectful and empty. Evan listened from a private channel as the noble spoke of misunderstandings and clerical errors. The queen let him finish. Then she said, "You have committed treason." The hall went silent. The noble laughed softly. "Strong words, your majesty." She did not raise her voice. "You diverted military supplies during unrest. You armed defiance while claiming loyalty. That is treason." "You have no proof," the noble replied smoothly. The queen turned her head slightly. "Human," she said. Every eye in the hall widened. Evan stepped into view. The reaction was immediate: shock, anger, disbelief. "He is here," someone hissed. The nobles sneered. "You bring a human into this chamber?" "Yes," the queen said, "because he sees what you pretend is invisible." Evan spoke calmly. "You moved the convoy 3 hours after receiving encrypted confirmation from the governor," he said. "You assumed your codes were unbroken. They were." The noble's expression tightened. "You lie." Evan shook his head. "Humans broke encryption for centuries before we ever met aliens." The noble lunged verbally, accusing, threatening, but the court was no longer listening. The queen raised one hand. "Detain him," she ordered. Guards moved. The noble screamed betrayal as he was dragged away. Fear spread through the hall like a living thing. After the session ended, the queen retreated to a private chamber. She stood still for a long moment. "They will not forgive this," she said. "They don't have to," Evan replied. "They just have to think twice." "They will escalate," she said. "Yes," Evan agreed. "That's what you want." She turned sharply. "Explain." "When people commit openly," Evan said, "they stop hiding. That's when they make mistakes." The escalation came fast. A coordinated message spread across the Dominion, accusing the Queen of being controlled by a human. The word weak appeared often. So did corrupted. Several fleets declared support for a provisional council. Civil war hovered on the edge. The Queen stared at the projection in silence. "This is my fault," she said quietly. Evan shook his head. "No, it's the fault of a system that taught them fear instead of loyalty. They are prepared to burn the empire to rule it," she said. "Then let them show everyone," Evan replied. He proposed a plan that made even the Queen hesitate. Instead of blocking communications, they would open them wider. Instead of silencing rebels, they would give them a stage. "You want me to let them speak?" she asked. "Yes," Evan said. "Let them promise what they can't deliver. Let them lie where everyone can see." Against every instinct, the Queen agreed. A Dominion-wide forum was called. Rebels spoke of freedom and strength. They promised security without fear. They claimed unity. Then Evan quietly released evidence. Supply thefts, private orders, hidden executions ordered by the same voices calling for mercy. The tide shifted, not instantly, but steadily. Worlds withdrew support, fleets hesitated, the rebellion lost momentum. Desperate, the rebel leaders made their move. They sent a private offer: safety, power, a human-controlled sector. Evan would be protected if he abandoned the Queen and publicly condemned her. The message arrived late at night. Evan stared at it for a long time. The Queen entered the chamber without ceremony. She saw his expression. "They offered you escape," she said. "Yes," Evan replied. She waited. "I said no," he added. Her shoulders eased slightly. "Why?" she asked. Evan looked at her. "Because you trusted me when you didn't have to," he said. "Humans don't forget that." The final clash was not a battle, but a collapse. One rebel fleet moved too early. Another refused to support them. Confusion turned into retreat. Retreat turned into surrender. By the time weapons were fired, it was already over. The Dominion did not shatter. It survived. In the aftermath, the court was quieter. Older, wiser perhaps, the Queen stood before the assembly. "The rebellion failed," she said, "not because of strength, but because it was built on lies." She paused. "Those who stood with the Dominion will be rewarded. Those who betrayed it will face justice, not out of fear, but out of necessity." Her gaze swept the hall. "And understand this," she said. "Humanity is not weak. They survive what destroys others." Many did not like her words, but none challenged them. Later, alone in the observation chamber, the Queen looked out over the capital world. "You changed my empire," she said. "I didn't," Evan replied. "I just helped you see it." She nodded slowly. The cracks had not vanished, but they had stopped spreading. For now, the capital world did not celebrate. Victory had come without a grand battle, without burning skies or shattered moons. To the Karzal people, that was unsettling. They were used to endings written in fire. This one felt unfinished. From the highest balcony of the palace, the alien queen looked out over the city. Endless towers of light stretched to the horizon, ships moving between them like slow-moving stars. Everything appeared calm. It was not. "They are quiet," she said. Evan stood a respectful distance behind her, hands relaxed at his sides. Since the rebellion's collapse, he had remained close, always watching, always listening. "Quiet doesn't mean loyal," he replied. "It means they're thinking." The Queen gave a slow nod. Many of the rebels had surrendered. Others had vanished into distant systems. Officially, the Dominion was whole again. Unofficially, trust was thin as glass. They blame you, the Queen said. Not for the rebellion, for surviving it. Evan gave a small smile. That's normal, she turned slightly. They blame me for trusting you? That's also normal, she studied him. You say that as if betrayal is expected. Evan's expression grew more serious. In unstable systems, yeah, people don't fear enemies. They fear change. As if summoned by his words, an alarm chimed softly through the chamber. An aide rushed in, breathing hard. Your Majesty, she said, the Inner Council has convened without approval. They are issuing emergency directives. The Queen's eyes hardened. On what authority? They claim yours is compromised, the aide replied. They are invoking succession safeguards. Evan felt tension coil in his chest. That's a coup, he said quietly. The Queen straightened. Then they have chosen their path. She moved quickly now, leaving the balcony. Evan followed. The council chamber was already crowded when they arrived. Senior nobles, military leaders, and administrators filled the circular room. The atmosphere was sharp with confidence and accusation. One counselor stepped forward. Your Majesty, he said, bowing shallowly, for the stability of the Dominion, we must temporarily remove you from command. A ripple of agreement spread. The Queen looked at them calmly. You mistake patience for surrender. You allowed rebellion to spread, another voice said. You invited human influence into our core. Eyes turned toward Evan, some with anger, some with fear. Evan did not speak. The first counselor raised his voice. By ancient law, we assume emergency authority. The Queen took one step forward. And by ancient law, she said, you are committing treason. Before anyone could react, a sharp crack echoed through the chamber. Pain tore through the Queen's side. She staggered. For a heartbeat, no one understood what had happened. Then Evan moved. He caught her as she fell, lowering her to the floor. Blood darkened the fabric of her ceremonial armor. Weapons came up across the room. Shouting erupted. Chaos returned, sudden and violent. Evan looked down at the Queen. Her eyes were open but unfocused. Stay with me, he said quietly. She struggled to breathe. They will not stop, she whispered. I know, Evan said, her hand tightened weakly around his sleeve. Then listen, she said. I name you my voice. His breath caught. You don't have to. I do, she interrupted, forcing strength into her gaze. They will obey power, use mine. Medical teams rushed in, pushing Evan back as they worked to stabilize her. As she was lifted onto a transport platform, her last words echoed in his ears. Hold the throne. The council chamber froze. All eyes turned to Evan. He stood slowly, blood on his hands, his face calm but pale. This session is over, he said. A counselor laughed. You have no authority here, human. Evan met his gaze. She gave it to me, he said, in front of witnesses. Murmurs rippled through the chamber. That is impossible, someone said. Check the record, Evan replied. Her words were logged. Silence followed as data confirmed it. Evan exhaled slowly. I don't want this, he said honestly, but you've left no other option. He looked around the room. Stand down, he said, or you will prove her right about you. Some hesitated, some lowered their weapons, others did not. The next hours blurred together. Emergency lockdowns sealed the palace. Loyal guards secured corridors. Evan coordinated responses through secure channels, his voice steady even when his hands shook. He did not issue threats, he issued clarity. Hold your positions. Do not fire unless fired upon. Record everything. The rebels expected force. They got discipline. When a faction tried to seize a communications hub, Evan redirected civilian feeds to broadcast their actions live. When a general threatened orbital strikes, Evan revealed his private orders authorizing civilian casualties during the earlier rebellion. Support collapsed faster than anyone expected. People did not rally behind fear this time. They stepped away from it. Evan barely slept. He moved from room to room, listening, deciding, adapting. He made mistakes and corrected them quickly. He relied on loyal Karzal officers, trusting their knowledge instead of overruling them. They noticed. You do not command like a ruler, one officer said quietly. Evan rubbed his eyes. Good, I'm not one. By the third day, resistance was scattered and disorganized. The inner council dissolved itself under public pressure. The palace grew quiet again. Evan stood alone outside the medical wing, staring at the sealed doors behind which the Queen lay unconscious. He felt empty. He had held the throne, but every moment felt wrong, too heavy. Too sharp. Hours later, the doors opened. A healer approached him. She will live, the healer said, but she will need time. Relief hit him like a wave. He leaned against the wall, closing his eyes. When the queen finally woke, the room was dim and silent. Evan sat nearby, asleep in a chair. She watched him for a long moment. "Human," she said softly. His eyes snapped open. He stood immediately. "You're awake," he said, unable to hide the emotion in his voice. She studied him carefully. "The Dominion still stands," she said. "Yes," Evan replied. "And the throne?" "I kept it warm," he said. "Nothing more." Her lips curved faintly. "You ruled." "I managed," he corrected. Silence settled between them. "You could have taken it," she said. "Many would have followed you." Evan shook his head. "That wasn't my place," she nodded slowly. "Strength," she said, "is not what I was taught." She looked at him, eyes steady now. "And neither is weakness." Outside, the capital world continued on, not healed, not perfect, but still standing. And for the first time in its long history, it had been protected not by fear, but by trust held under impossible weight. The palace changed after the queen recovered. It was not something written into law or announced across the Dominion. It happened quietly, in pauses between conversations, in how guards stood, in how advisors chose their words. The throne was still the same living structure of crystal and alloy, but the air around it felt different, less heavy. The alien queen returned to public view slowly. Her wound healed, but she no longer rushed into command the way she once had. She listened more. She watched longer. Evan stayed close, but no longer at her side during every session. His role was never made official. There was no title, no rank, no public authority. And yet people noticed when he entered a room, not with fear, with attention. The court assembled for the first full gathering since the coup attempt. The hall was filled but quieter than before. Many old faces were gone, some removed, some resigned. Some simply disappeared from power. The queen rose from her throne. "You all know why we are here," she said. "The Dominion survived betrayal from within, not because of strength alone, but because restraint held when fear demanded violence." She paused, letting the words sink in. "For generations we believed rule meant dominance," she continued. "That obedience must be forced, that mercy invites collapse." Her gaze moved slowly across the assembly. "We were wrong." A murmur moved through the hall, not anger. Not agreement, uncertainty. The queen lifted one hand. "A human stood between me and death," she said. "Not because he was ordered to, not because he was rewarded, but because he chose to." She gestured slightly. Evan stepped forward, stopping well short of the throne. He kept his head level, not bowing, not posturing. "He held this empire together when I could not," the queen said, "and when I returned, he gave power back without hesitation." She looked directly at Evan. "Human," she said, "speak." Every eye turned to him. Evan took a slow breath. "I won't pretend to understand your empire," he said. "It's old, powerful, complicated, but I do understand something simple." He glanced around the hall. "People don't follow fear forever. They endure it. They wait. And when the chance comes, they break away." Silence followed. "Humans learned that the hard way," he continued. "We broke ourselves more than once. What saved us wasn't being stronger. It was learning when not to be." He turned back toward the queen. "I didn't hold your throne," he said. "I held space long enough for you to return." The queen inclined her head slightly. "That is why," she said, "he will return to his people." Gasps echoed. Some expected reward, some expected punishment, few expected release. Evan blinked, surprised despite himself. "You're letting me go?" he asked quietly. "Yes," she said, "because loyalty chosen freely is stronger than loyalty bound by power." She raised her voice. "Humanity will be recognized as an equal sovereign civilization," she declared. "Not vassals, not observers, equals." The hall erupted. Voices overlapped, shock, protest, disbelief. The queen did not flinch. "Those who oppose this," she said, "are free to challenge me now." No one moved. The silence that followed was different than before, not forced. Not fearful, accepting. In the days that followed, changes spread through the Dominion, slowly, carefully, not all at once. Some systems resisted, others welcomed the shift. Trade routes reopened. Old laws were reviewed instead of enforced without question. Military authority was clarified, no longer absolute without oversight. It was not perfect, but it was alive. Evan prepared to leave quietly. No ceremony, no speeches, just a transport back to human space. The queen met him one last time in a private chamber overlooking the city. "You will be remembered," she said. "That's not necessary," Evan replied. She studied him. "You changed the course of an empire." "I nudged it," he said. "You steered." She was silent for a moment. "Once," she said, "I called your kind weak." Evan smiled faintly. You weren't entirely wrong. She shook her head slowly. We measure strength incorrectly, she said. You endure what destroys us, you adapt where we cling, you protect without command. She stepped closer. That is not weakness. Evan met her gaze. It's survival, he said. She extended one hand, palm open. Not a ruler's gesture, not dominance, respect. Evan placed his hand against hers briefly, then stepped back. The transport lifted from the capital world hours later. From the viewport, Evan watched the city shrink into a web of light. He felt no triumph, no regret, only quiet relief. Back on Earth, news of the Alliance spread slowly at first, then all at once. Analysts argued, leaders debated. People watched recordings of a human standing calm before an alien throne. Some called him a hero. Evan returned to a quiet life. He refused interviews, declined positions. He taught instead, shared stories without exaggeration. Months passed, then years. The Dominion changed, not into something human, into something better. Other empires noticed. Noticed that the Karzal no longer ruled through terror, that their people did not revolt at the first sign of weakness, that humans stood beside them, not beneath them. A new balance formed in the stars, and somewhere beyond borders and politics, a simple truth spread. Humans were not the strongest, they were not the fastest, they were not the most feared, but when everything else broke, they endured, and sometimes that was enough to hold an empire together.